So,
If he's not all day. We'll have Nicole presenting as well.
Yeah.
Sometime in the minute. I haven't gotten a
Here's this.
statement from her, so I
You wanna
might
do one?
we might have to
We'll
follow
have mine, right?
Yeah.
sharing permission or something, but
Yeah.
yeah, so and that box the agenda. That you want to keep that sort of
We can keep it
after
where it is.
the section. Yeah, this is the part where things always slow. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
People to sit up and put
Really?
which ones?
I did not take
We
my
need-
ears. I got
yeah.
a phone call from Barry.
Oh, no.
Something's not right. It's
Right,
leaking in your office.
No.
Battery backup went down, system crashed.
Mhm.
It was 5:30 this morning. I just barely got.
Is everybody able to hear us okay?
Our back.
Yeah, okay,
Dying.
great. We are still a couple short of quorum. So we'll give it a couple minutes. There's Sue. All right, so we are on. So, okay, we should definitely have some. And Nicole, when it comes time for you to present, me to give you to share your screen, you want to email over a presentation or any permission?
It's a canvas, so I'm hoping to be able to share my screen if that's possible.
Quorum? I believe so. We got 4 online, 3 in the room. We officially have quorum. Great. Good morning, all. I'm gonna call to order the February 19th ACEDC board meeting at 7:32. We will first start with introductions of those in the room. Dave Castle, board president.
Richard McCurr here in Middlebury.
Mark Foster, Middlebury Board.
Nicole Bashan, ACDC.
And Alex Armani Munn, ACDC. Okay, and for those of you remote, we have you recorded here. First order of business is the any changes to the agenda. And I would like to propose that we move our fiscal year 25 audit report to the top of the agenda. We do have Todd Wimet, our auditor, joining us this morning to answer any questions on the audit report. Todd will have to leave by 8, so I want to make sure we do that right off the top and have plenty of time for discussion before he has to go. So, okay, so is there a motion to approve the changes?
Make a motion.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we'll bring it to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, we will make those changes. Duplicate. All right, and I'm gonna be pulling up the audit report here. Okay. So I'm happy to report that our fiscal year 2025 audit is now complete. The complete, draft report is available on SharePoint. We have it up here on the screen as well. Just so folks are aware, this was a single audit. And just historically, single audits have been triggered when you have at least $750,000 in federal funds. That threshold has been increased to $1 million effective October 1, 2025. We, I believe, had about 900, that's something thousand, in federal funds on hand, mostly through our USARD lending program. That includes the accounts receivable. So even moving forward, we'll always kind of be right on that cusp of having to do this single audit. But my expectation is more likely than not, as we move forward in the future, we will continue to be subject to a single audit. Um, exactly, I think we've been subject to a single audit. The big takeaway, though, I'm happy to report, is that it was a clean audit, so no issues that were found. Otherwise, some of these financials, they reflect end of year financials, so our financials as of June. Nothing too surprising there. Current assets were down. A lot of this was due to just increased personnel costs through fiscal year 25 as we transitioned from Fred to me. Otherwise, we did issue some new loans that increased our other assets. But overall, I would say no real dramatic changes in our financial position. That's really all I have to report. Todd, is there anything you think is important to highlight that I may have missed?
Yeah, just a couple quick minutes. Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yep.
So again, my name is Todd Wilmette with Weishart Wilmette and Associates up in Essex, and this is the second year we've taken care of the audit, and also we do the tax filing, the Form 990, which is also complete. So just to reiterate a couple quick things on Alex. With this agency, we actually do two audits. We do the financial statement audit, and as he mentioned, you're also subject to the single audit, which for those who are not aware of that, the single audit is nothing more than a compliance audit, and it's if an agency has more than the old threshold, which this audit was under, was $750,000 of federal funds. The new threshold moving forward is $1 million. And because of the lending programs, which are funded through federal dollars, the agency has had, and I don't know how far back it goes, but has been subject to the single audit. So we do two audits, and both audits, and I won't have you go to the actual pages. We actually issue 3 different auditor opinions. The first one is on page 1 and 2, 1, 2, and 3 of the report. That's the opinion on the financial statements. If you read through it, it's all the standard language, but what it is, it's what's called an unqualified opinion. So it's what's considered a clean opinion. So the statements are reported in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So the readers of the statements can rely on these as an accurate representation of the agency. As part of the audit, we did have 3 audit entries. None of which are anything of concern, and they're pretty typical on an annual basis. One was just to adjust depreciation expense. Another one was to adjust the lease asset and liability, which is just an accounting issue. And the other one was just to move the fund balances from last year into the appropriate bucket. So the entries were pretty standard, nothing of an unusual or an alarming basis, so that was clean. As far
Hold
as
on,
the
Todd,
audit
you're breaking
go,
up a little.
go ahead, someone say something.
Yeah, you're breaking up
Yeah.
a little, frozen for a moment.
Oh, sorry.
Just
So anyway, just to kind of jump to the end here, the other 2 opinions we give are on the single audit, and those are from the compliance perspective. One is on the internal controls over the single audit, and both of those opinions came back clean as well. We didn't have any findings. Being a small entity, small organization, the struggle is always segregation of duties. But we feel like, the relationship with the third-party bookkeeping firm and how the systems are set up and flow, it's a good system and it works and it's timely for this organization. But again, with a small organization, due diligence on everybody's part is always a necessary component of an internal control system. So again, in moving forward, The agency may or may not have single audits. It's probably, like Alex said, going to be on the cusp of it with the new threshold. But it's obviously something we got to look at every year to see if there is any sort of requirement for that audit moving forward. So I don't know if there's any questions or anything in specific you want to chat about, but I'd be more than happy to.
Any questions? Okay. Well, Todd, thanks for your time, and I'm glad to hear that this went smoothly. Yeah, appreciate it.
No problem.
All right,
All right. Bye.
take care.
So,
All right. Well, thanks for all who worked with him on that. The next order of business is we'll go right into the staff activity report.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So I'll do my best to keep this brief. Things continue to be busy, which is great. The first thing I'll share is we did have a visit in January from senior staff at the Agency of Natural Resources, including Secretary Julie Moore, as well as staff from the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, including Economic Development Commissioner Lyle Jepson and Deputy Commissioner Nick Renly, as well as visits from I believe it's Peter Gill from the Land Use Review Board and a member of the District 9 Act 250 staff. So we hosted all of those folks for a visit to Vermont Frames in Starksboro. That's a local business that has been going through the approval process for a new shed on their property. It had been a bit tedious. So it was a great issue resolution meeting. It was the first time since I've been executive director that we've hosted staff from senior staff from state agencies. That is a contractual requirement, our operating grant with ACCD. So I was really excited to do that for the first time, and I think it went really well. Richard joined me for that. And after that visit to Vermont Frames, we also visited Mechanical Advantage with Deputy Commissioner Grimley and Betsy Adams from the Apex Accelerator. So I was really pleased with just the results of the visit that day. Otherwise, happy to report that Richard, since really coming on, of course, was hired in December, really got to work in January, and that time has trained closely with Camille and is now fully taking over GROW grant administration as well as MBRC grant administration. And do just want to acknowledge that, especially with GROW, the administration with that program has always been a little bit complicated, and because it's such a new program, we've been figuring out along with the state, and Richard did some really, I think, awesome work through the month of January, cleaning up reporting, and not just cleaning it up, but also taking time to walk the chamber through that reporting and put us in a position where I think we'll be able to streamline a lot of that for this next grant cycle. So just really excited with the work that Richard did in January on that. In addition to taking over that grant administration work from Camille, he's also taken over as our point person on the workforce expansion program and is now working very closely with Becca, our workforce expansion coordinator, on that. So again, just kudos to Richard for jumping right in and taking on a lot of work early on. So as Nicole can attest to, this is her second time around doing it, but it's a lot of emails, a lot of calls, a lot of following up with people to get that documentation that we are required by USDA to collect. So she's been hard at work on that. She also, in the last week or two, is starting coordination and planning of our annual board retreat. So I won't go too much into detail on that now, other than to say it will be in May. We'll look at probably doing the second half of May as we've historically done. The one thing I do want folks to be aware of, historically, we've done this as a day-long event at Basin Harbor Club. This year, in order to save money, we'll be looking at using a different venue. I would also like to chop this down to a half-day event, 4 hours tops, if that. So it's going to be a bit of a pared-down retreat. This will save us time and money. Attendance was a bit of a struggle last year, and I don't, I can understand why. Basin Harbor Club's a ways out there asking people to commit, 8 hours on a Tuesday or Wednesday is a lot to ask. So we want to make sure the retreat is, just not quite as tedious this year. So more details on that to come. I can say between now and our next board meeting, we will likely be sending out a doodle poll with some prospective dates. Again, I'm looking at a Thursday or Friday, kind of afternoon, noon to 4, 11 to 3, something like that. So we'll send out a doodle poll probably the next couple of weeks to nail down a date. My hope is then in March to be able to report the exact date, time, details, location, all of that. But just a heads up, the retreat is coming. Last couple things, we are now actively working on 2 chip applications in the city of Virgins. So we'll collect $25 up to $2,500 in fees for doing those applications. But ultimately, the hope is that if these applications are successful and these projects secure TIF agreements, then we will be the administrator, and that will generate a revenue stream for us for the next 20 years. So really excited with that chip work, and also looking at some possible chip projects here in Middlebury. So we'll hopefully have, at least 2, if not more, chip projects in place by the end of the year. I will pause there. We have a lot of ground to cover today. So there is a full staff report on SharePoint. Happy to answer any questions folks have. But again, pretty robust agenda today. So
Yeah.
we can just keep it moving.
Well, glad to hear that the transition with Richard's going well. And I think in terms of the retreat, it really is a good time to get the whole board in person. So I'd ask the board to, if there's a doodle poll to figure out what date works for everyone, please respond to that. And I think clipping it to half a day helps folks out. So thanks. Any other comments on the staff activity from the board? All right, the next item are the January financials.
Yeah, financials are available on SharePoint. Not really anything too urgent to report here. One thing to note, our quarterly payment from the state came in the first week of February, so that is not reflected on the January financials, which impacted net income. We have received that payment. Again, first week of February, we got that. Still waiting on some reimbursements for our NBRC capacity grant. Otherwise, the USDA duplicate charges on our revolving loan fund accounts have not yet been resolved, so that continues to be the bane of my existence. But yeah, nothing again too urgent to report there.
Okay.
But I'm hoping to do a more robust report on financial. We did a month or 2 ago before the end of the year, so probably March or April, give another update on that.
All right, any questions from the board or comments on the financials?
If
Um,
receivable should go into the flow into the
Yeah,
income.
let me ask Stuart about that, because I know
Yeah.
like with our NBRC capacity reimbursements, those I believe are showing up in receivables, but I don't believe that the quarterly grants are. So yeah, let me check with Seward on
Yeah,
that.
because that would resolve your net income issue.
Yeah.
Good, thanks, Richard. So the next item is the MNC activity report. It should be in your SharePoint.
And yeah, nothing to report there. Newsletter went out last month. So yeah.
Any comments from the board? All right, so we'll go to citizen comments. It's an opportunity to raise or address issues not otherwise on the agenda. Anyone have anything? All right, hearing none, we will move to the resolution to appoint Matthew Center to the board.
Yeah, and just so folks have reference here, Matthew Center, he works with Agri Access, so great knowledge on agriculture as well as small business lending. So I had originally met with him in the fall, just to kind of catch up on business. And Matthew, again, extremely intelligent, insightful, articulate. So it kind of sparked the idea in my mind there that he would be a great board member. Just so folks are aware, again, I, as executive director, will be removing myself from any future board recruitment, and leaving that up to current board members and executive committee to do that outreach to folks on joining the board. However, I presented Matthew to executive committee, and there seemed to be strong support for having him join the board. So the seat specifically that he'll be filling is the seat that Jason vacated when he stepped down at the end of the year. Because it's filling sort of a vacant seat midterm, the nomination process is a little different than when we're just filling an empty seat that's left vacant by the end of a term. So Matthew was nominated by Chris LaPierre, current board member, in January. So basically the way that procedure works is any current board member can nominate somebody to fill a board seat. They notify our secretary, who's currently Ryan, at least 10 days before a board meeting. And then that person's voted on at the following board meeting. So Matthew would be filling the seat through the end of 2027, and then would be subject to the regular kind of term requirements or constraints for a board member. But with that, yeah.
Okay. Are there any comments on this motion? All right, so is there a motion to approve the resolution to present and nominate Matthew Center to serve as the remainder of the term for the Board of Trustees, seat previously occupied by Jason LaRock?
So moved.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, second. We'll bring it to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, hearing none, the motion is approved. And next order of business is the county's consulting agreement.
Yes, and just for reference here, this is not something that, according to our bylaws, necessarily requires board action. Something that could be approved by executive committee, but still want to present it to folks just so they were aware of the agreement. So of course, a familiar name and my predecessor, Fred Kenny. I reached out to Fred in January. We have a historic document, an ACEDC timeline from 1972 to 2015 that includes multiple models for the organization and the community. I came across this document as I was preparing materials for a new member orientation, and I thought it was probably one of the most important on our to come across. We have a few different historic narratives on how ACDC came to be, but this one was the most comprehensive in terms of covering milestones throughout our history. But of course, it ended in 2014, and I was like, man, it would really stink to just have this not continue to be updated and continue to be active. So my thought was, why not reach out to Fred and say, or what better person to fill in the blanks between 2014 and 2025 than Fred? So I asked him if he'd be interested in taking some time to update this document, and of course, offered to compensate him, and he agreed. In addition to updating this document, I've also asked Fred, we are back to doing our weekly legislative updates. That is something that Camille's currently doing. I am happy to say we still have Camille supporting us, but that could change, really at any time. So the other part of this agreement under additional services is that if Camille were to leave before the end of session, Fred would take over the weekly legislative updates for us. So if that need arose, this agreement would cover that. So again, just want to present this to the board, let them know that Fred will be doing some work for us. There is a not to exceed amount of, I believe, 2,500 on the agreement. I don't expect it to get up to that in terms of what he's actually billing us, but yeah.
Okay, are there any comments from the board? I don't think we need to bring this to vote since it's not part of the bylaws. So if there aren't any comments, we're good. I think we can skip this robust interview process with Ken that we typically do, or Fred that we typically do. So the next order of business is Nicole, I believe, going to be presenting about the Hanover Career Center. Maybe.
All right, how do I share my screen? Here we go.
Are you able to share right already, Nicole, or is it,
I'm thinking I can. Hold on
Okay.
here.
if it doesn't work, let me know and I'll,
Okay. Allow screen recording, open system settings. You gotta love Teams. Okay, here we go. Let's try this again. There we go. Okay,
all right. Screen laser, shoot. I lost you. Shoot. It looks like it was working.
Mhm. I think it's.
Okay, so she should the ability to share. There you go.
I don't know what's going on. It keeps kicking me out when I try to open up the thing here. I'm gonna try one more time.
Sorry, but if you this is with Canva, if you're able to send it over, we can try that. It does look like we've enabled screen sharing, but
Yeah. I'm gonna try one more time. Oh. Fingers crossed. Are you still there?
still
They
here.
are.
Thank God.
Screen's coming.
Okay. Can you see the Canva presentation? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, on. Okay. So
Yeah.
our annual meeting is actually tonight. So if anybody wants to come and see this live, you're welcome to. Each year, because we're a public school district, just like Addison Central, Addison Northwest, we go to the voters for our budget. So this is our budget presentation, but we use it as an opportunity to do much more than just present our budget. It's really a marketing tool and an outreach tool for our community. So generally when I'm presenting, people don't know too much about the Career Center. So I try to use this opportunity to tell them a little bit about us. So today we're going to talk about PAC and our students and the statewide context for CTE, and then our work connecting students and adult learners to high demand, high skill, high wage careers. So we serve 17 towns, almost all of Addison County, but not all of Addison County. And we were formed in 1971. Each year we serve 1 in 3 high school students and hundreds of adult learners, most of which are in our medical professions programs. We also have 44 community partners and growing as we put students out into the workplace to do work-based learning, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Many people don't know, we actually have 3 campuses. We have the main campus here in Middlebury, then we have another campus just on the north part of Middlebury, and then we also have a satellite program that operates within Virgins High School. So CTE matters for a lot of reasons, not just for students' growth and love of school, but also it's very important to the economic development of Addison County and the state of Vermont. So the statewide context, I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that we are getting older and older in Vermont, and we actually are declining in population. This statistic is just a little bit old. By 2030, now it's 1 in 3 people in Vermont will be over 65 years old. And that's especially important in the trades where people are retiring out of the trades and there aren't nearly enough young people to backfill those retirees. We also know that in Vermont, only about 50% of our students go on to a four-year university. So it's really important that students that are staying in the community or who are not pursuing a college education still have the opportunity to pursue a high wage, high skill, high demand career. And it's important for Vermont that these students do that too.
Nicole, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we are still seeing the title slide, the initial one.
Oh,
I just
no.
wanted to check
Huh.
that. Apologies to interrupt. So we're seeing your screen, but I'm just concerned that if you're okay.
Is
Now
it
we're-
now going?
Yep, we're seeing the economic imperative.
Okay, okay, I'm gonna go back one. Did you see it change?
Yep, statewide context. Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, all right. I'm not sure there was one more button to push. So if you're ever using Canva, there's a little toggle at the top. Make sure the person looks at that too. So what's the economic imperative? Obviously the economic imperative is that when unemployment is below 3% and you have an aging population, it's critical that young people are moving into the trades. So Vermont really needs to grow our own workforce because students are not going, all of our surrounding states pay more than we do. Housing is expensive and not and scarce in Vermont. And with young people, we know that they have some sort of tether to Vermont. And so it's a really important way to have students learn their trades and also hopefully stay in Vermont to pursue their trades. So CTE is good for students, for communities, and for Vermont's future. It's the pathway for connecting education to opportunity. So in particular, our institute, the Hannaford Regional Technical School District, we're graduating students at a higher rate than the surrounding high schools. In fact, we're graduating students at a higher rate than Vermont. So students leave us with not only a high school diploma in hand, they also leave with industry recognized credentials, the same exact credentials that adults in the field get. They get dual enrollment credits, which means that they have college credits in their field of study. They do work-based learning, so they have hands-on experience in their career pathway, and they generally have a job offer before they leave us. Our students are graduating ready for work or their next experience if they're going on to college. So what are our outcomes? So Vermont, all students in Vermont that are in career technical education graduated at a rate about 95%, and all students in Vermont graduated about 82%. Our last year graduation rate was 98%, and the year before it was 99%. So students who get connected with CTE graduate at higher rates. We also see across the nation that CTE is on the rise. Students are really leaning into career technical education as they're really reevaluating the cost benefit ratio of taking on student debt at the college level. That since 24, we've seen a 12% increase in vocational and community colleges. Since 2020, we've seen a 20% increase nationwide. And our 2-year enrollment, students are choosing community college after high school at a greater rate than ever before instead of 4-year institutions. So one of the things in career technical education that we're charged with is to make sure our programming is aligned with the region that we are operating in and also the state that we're operating in. So these are the 4 most needed jobs in Vermont at this time. And the Hannaford Career Center offers programs in all of these areas: teaching, culinary, nursing, and carpentry. So who do we serve? So again, we serve students in Addison County and beyond, and students can go to any CTE in the state. The way our laws in Vermont are written is that they should first try to get into their own CTE, and then if they can't, they should reach out to the next nearest CTE. So we serve about 350 high school students each year. We have 9th and 10th graders that are taking what are called pre-technical courses, which are sort of survey courses, learning a little bit about a number of trades. And then we have 11th and 12th graders taking our technical programs, which are focused in nature. And we also have several hundred adult learners that go through us each year, mostly in the healthcare profession. So again, high skill, high wage, high demand jobs is what we do. So one of the things we're particularly proud of is almost 40% of our students are on either an IEP, individual education plan, which means they receive special education services, or they're on a 504, which is similar to that. And yet remember that we have almost 40% of our students on that have been struggling learners before, but they're graduating at a rate of 98% with college credits and industry certificates in hand. So we're particularly proud of connecting students with schooling that makes sense to them, that they are engaged in, and that helps them to graduate. So what programs do we have? So the pre-tech programs, remember, those are the 9th and 10th grade programs that are meant to introduce students to a profession. So you can see the programs we have here in ag, in STEM, in mechanical science, visual communications, plant and animal science, engineering, power equipment, business, STEM, and trades. And then for our 9th and 10th graders, those are the programs that are very concentrated on our particular industry. We have ART, the last remaining theater program in the state, advanced manufacturing, automotive tech, construction, culinary, design and illustration, diesel, the teaching profession. Electrical is our brand new program. We're starting up next year. Medical professions, natural resources, sustainable agriculture, and welding and fabrication. And welding, this last year was our first year, and when the program opened, it was full. The other thing which is very exciting about career technical education is as students learn the trade here at the Hannaford Center, they then also go work in the field in a real industry experience so that they can try out their skills and make sure that that industry is a good fit for them. Most of our students get a job offer from that work-based learning opportunity. These are the community partners that are currently hosting students or hosted them earlier first semester. And you can see we have quite a lot of fantastic partners helping our students. And we always want to give a special shout out to the University of Vermont Health Network and Porter Medical. I have never seen the kind of access that our students have to the healthcare profession that University of Vermont Health Network makes possible. Our students are in the operating room. They're in the nursing rooms. They're following around, just like you see on TV programs where the interns are following the teachers around. Our students are having those opportunities. And it's very complicated for our students to have that kind of opportunity because of all of the HIPAA laws and the restrictions in hospitals. So the University of Vermont Health Network really is bending over backwards to allow our students this access. Then the other piece that many people don't know we do is adult education. So this is for people who have graduated from high school who are either wanting to learn a new skill or maybe transfer careers from one thing to the other. So we have phlebotomy, we have nursing, we have LNA, licensed nursing assistant, we have welding, we have engine repair, we have diesel, and we have woodworking in our adult education program right now. So what is our enrollment and capacity? So this fall, we had 377 students, and usually in our spring semester, we have a few less, and they come largely from Middlebury Union High School, about 156. Virgins has about 100. Mount Abe has about 88. And then you can see we have small numbers of students from other places. And what were the program enrollments? You can see here how many students were enrolled in each of our program. Our diesel program is definitely our most popular, and we're one of the few diesel and auto, we're one of the few diesel programs listed in the state. And then our auto technology program, we serve many students from Madison County and beyond. And then these are our pre-technical programs. So those are the younger students who are learning about a trade. And then we hope that those students follow that path into the technical programs. So again, we serve about 350. This year we had a little more, 377 students, which is a third of all the high schools in our students in our region. And this is the crux that Alex and I have been talking quite a lot about, and I've been spending much time in the legislature. We have 600 spots in our school. So even though we serve 377 students, we still have lots of capacity for students. And at the same time, Stafford to our south and Essex and Burlington to our north do not have enough seats to serve the students who want to go to CTE. So right now, well, this was first semester, but at the time that we were all registered students, there were 131 students who were turned away from CTE to our north and our south, while we sit here with excess capacity here at the Hannaford Career Center. And we're in a state where students definitely need the opportunities of CTE because you see the outcomes that happen when students connect with CTE, and our state needs the students going into the labor pipeline. So every student deserves a CTE opportunity. If the other piece that this translates into is directly into taxpayer pockets, because the way that CTE works in the state of Vermont is the taxpayers pay for that each seat of a student. So when a student comes to us from Middlebury Union High School or Virgins High School, that school has to pay a fee to the CTE center to serve that student. That's pretty unique, the way that Vermont has set this up, and it's a little bit problematic as it then puts competition in the mix when a sending school has to pay us to take one of their students. If we were able to serve even half of the students that were on wait lists, so even only 65 students of those 131 who got turned away from CTE, our tuition would decrease by over $14,000 per student, a decrease of 34%. So what is our fiscal year 27 budget? So just putting it into context, in fiscal year 26, $125 million was spent in Addison County on public education. So that's all of the public education K-12 in Addison County was $125 million. Of that, we were less than 5%, actually 4.45% of that budget was the Hannaford Career Center. So this was our 26 budget. You can see that wages and benefits are a huge amount of our budget. 40% of each person's wage, you have to add another 40% to cover their health care. And that's pretty spectacularly expensive. So when we hire somebody, if let's say they're making $100,000 a year, teachers don't really, but let's say they were, then it would be another $40,000 for us to serve them with health care. And then the other piece that just really is a huge deal for us is our debt service. So when we remodel, we had to take, just like if you were remodeling your home, we had to take a loan out to do that. And so then we have to pay back that debt service. So each year, right now, it's about 15% of our budget goes to that debt service. So you can see that between wages, benefits, and debt service, that's the bulk of our budget. And the 27 proposed budget looks pretty much the same. The thing that's driving our expenses is labor and healthcare. The rest of our costs are fairly fixed. Our heat and our lights and our transportation and our insurance and all of those things are fairly fixed. It's the labor and just like with any business, labor and insurance, which is driving our increases. So our increase is just over $500,000. Which represents a 9.95% budget increase. If we did nothing different from year to year, nothing at all different, including debt service, just the labor and healthcare of our current employees would take us up 8.5%. So this represents 1% more of that due to the escalation of all other costs. So the salary increases, healthcare premiums, and the bonds that we pay, and the boundaries, which are keeping students away from CTE here in Addison County, are all working against us. So what are those things? That bond debt, again, was an $8.1 million renovation for this campus. It hadn't been touched since 1971. It was in desperate need of overhaul and energy renovation. Similar to our North Campus building, which that debt is just about to retire. So we're pretty excited about that. And then what are those boundary constraints? Those boundary constraints are currently our boundary only reaches just under 1,200 students, where Stafford to our south has 2,100 students in their boundary, and Chittenden County, which is Essex Tech and Burlington Tech, have 7,000 students in their boundaries. So what are those major cost pressures? The health insurance is a huge one, as any of you who have to pay health insurance know. If you take a look from what we paid in 2018 to what we're paying in 2026, the same exact plan, it's called CHP Gold for us, the same exact plan that used to be $17,000 in 2018 is now $41,000 in 26. And that's the same exact coverage. And then our facilities, the major cost pressures are our North Campus. We have to put a new roof on it, which it has reached the end of its 30-year capacity, and so it needs that new roof. And then what is our salary and debt obligation, which is driving up those payments as we just talked about. So the tuition that the sending school districts have to pay to us to serve their students, which again is a very unique thing to Vermont. This is not how it works other places. For a full-time student, which we don't have, we have half-time students. If we did have a full-time student, it would cost the sending school district $38,894 for that student. But we have half-time students, so it costs half of that for a technical student, just under $20,000 for a technical student. And for a pre-technical student, it's half of that again, because they only count for 0.25. So part of the money comes directly from the sending school districts, and the state pays part of the money directly. So it's a little bit complicated of a formula, but essentially the state pays 30% of that. Let's say it's 20, just under 20 of $18,000. So 38,894 divided by 2, right? That's the amount for each student who's in a technical program. And of that, which is about, I don't know, $19,000, of that $19,000, the state pays 30% and the school district pays 20%. It's a very strange way to fund CTE.
And how does it work other places? You said that's special in Vermont.
Yeah, let me get out of here so I can see people's faces. Stop sharing. How do I stop sharing? Let's see.
I think
You have.
you did
Yeah,
stop
yeah.
sharing, so we're-
Yeah, I don't, where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay. So in other places, it's funded either just like a regular school district where you get a per student amount from the state, or it's funded on a per resident high school. So if your town, let's say your town had 2,000 high schools, you would get a per 2,000 number, assuming that students are accessing CTE. Most states, though, it's just whatever the regular school district gets, like whatever Middlebury would get for a student, the CTE would get something similar, usually enhanced because CTE is very expensive, from the state itself. So this whole school districts having to send money to follow students is really problematic because it creates a lot of competition for students and minimizes student opportunities for CTE across the state.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you.
Nicole, with all of the changes happening within Vermont with school districts and consolidation, is there an opportunity that presents itself for CTEs, or is it part of the same mix?
So it's really interesting. So the Agency of Education and the governor have a plan which is different than the practitioners have a plan. The governor and the Secretary of Education want to take all of the CTEs out of all the school districts and eliminate all the standalone technical school districts and instead make one large entity called a CTE Educational Service Agency across the entire state. That's their plan. The school districts themselves, school district boards and school district superintendents pretty much want the opposite, which is that CTE, instead of being outside of K-12, get pulled into K-12 just as an operating program within their school districts, like foreign language or something. Both have problems. Both are very disruptive. Because right now CTE lives in this strange space outside of K-12, but still connected to K-12, where we have relatively independent governance in some cases. When, like at Stafford, even though Stafford Technical Center is part of the Rutland County Schools, it has a director who runs the center very much like a high school principal would run a high school. Then there are 4 of us, myself included, who are actually standalone school districts with our own school boards, our own budgets, the whole thing, which is why we do this presentation every year for the budget and have a vote. So either what the Superintendent's Association or what the Agency of Education wants, both would be different than what we have now. And it's very contentious, and there's a lot of data on both sides. And we're at the end of February right now, and any change would have to be legislated by May-ish. And right now there's zero consensus.
Nicole, I know you mentioned the bill from AOE in the governor's office. My understanding is that Senator Ron Hensdale I believe also has a bill, S313. Is that correct? Is that kind of a counter to the governor's
Yeah.
proposal, or what does that look like?
Yeah, Senator Hinsdale's bill is aspirational in nature. It is not actually a bill which creates or directs how change would happen. The bill that she has put forward is what we would hope the future state of CTE looks like, but does not include the pathway to get there. And it's going to be super complicated. So while I think that the bill has excellent aspirations. She definitely listened to the field and she went around and toured centers. It is not something that would take us to where we would go. It's just stating what the future state would look like.
In terms of capacity, it seems like you have 40% open capacity while all the surrounding, are struggling to, have wait lists. If the state were to go to a statewide CT, would that solve the problem, or is it a completely different mechanism to get students to your center?
It's a really good question. The stated intent of the legislation put forward by the Agency of Education is to even out that attendance. I will say that there's significant skepticism in the field about the way that they intend to go about it. Essentially, they would create a governance structure, a whole district office type thing somewhere in the state that would run all of CT in the state and would not be run by K-12 practitioners. So I think that based on mostly the advocacy that we've been doing, the problem is now understood, that kids want into CTE and the places where they are full, and there are places which have space for them and would love to serve them. And the boundary issue, I feel like we've gotten some traction on making those boundaries either very permeable or go away.
Mm-hmm.
But
Sorry, what are the boundaries? Like Chittenden kid can't come to Addison to like your school?
Well, they can, but they have to provide their own transportation and their school has to let them. And I will say that the latter is the bigger problem, is people not wanting, nobody would say this out loud, but I'm not sure that they would want a whole bus full of $20,000 kids going down to another center outside of their own district.
But it's a money thing, that's all. It's not anything
Well,
else.
and there is some legitimacy to, does a student want to ride 40 minutes to go to a different center? But in other parts of the nation, kids ride farther than that. It's a sort of a Vermont schema that's far. In other places, that doesn't seem far.
Everything in Vermont 40 minutes away?
Pretty much, and not on a straight road.
Well, one last question about capacity. If everything was leveled, and then you looked forward 10 years with the aging population, do you think that CTs in general in Vermont have enough capacity for Vermont to continue to grow? Or are we in a state where we're going to constrain ourselves and then every school is going to be full and we're just going to have wait lists again?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you look at the high schools themselves, there's significantly declining enrollment. Virginia's high school is down to something like 240 kids. But CTEs are gaining enrollment every year. Students are leaning into CTE. They love it. They come here, they stay. And of course they do. It's fantastic and super fun and engaging and makes them love school again. And they have a caring adult for 2 to 4 hours every single day. So, I think one of the keys to Vermont's future is to lean into CTE. I think either of the proposals currently out there are problematic, though. There's significant distrust in the Agency of Education. I'll just put it out there. The practitioners do not trust the agency to have the beds to make things work in a way that actually supports the educational needs of kids. And then the K-12, the reason that the current the current system of having these standalone CTEs is intentional. And that's because when you have really small populations like Vermont does, if you don't have a regionalized system, then that means that each high school has maybe 1 or 2 CTE programs because they're small high schools and they can only support 1 or 2 CTE programs. So there's a very intentional decision made along the way that instead we would regionalize so that students would have access. Like we have 24 programs here in a small rural community. And if there was CTE only at the 3 high schools that we serve, there would probably only be 6 or 7 CTE programs. And there's no guarantee about what those programs would be because they would be based on the staff that the high schools had or were able to hire. So I completely understand why people think, let's have the CTEs at the high schools so that more kids can access them. But what happens then is that you significantly, like clearly you would have so much less CTE access, especially in Addison County, if that happened, because there's just not the structure in the high schools to support 6, 7, 8 CTE programs, which we would need in order to keep the 24 across the county. So I get what they're saying, but it doesn't work in sparsely populated communities. That's why Vermont has what we have.
Well, so I guess why is Hanford Career Center so successful with so many programs versus the schools can't do it? Like what makes you so successful versus them?
Because we're able to pull students from across the whole county to go. So if I was just at a high school, I could only pull from my high school. So if I was like at Virgin's High School, I only have 242 high school kids to pull from. And I also have to do math and English and social studies and health and PE and all that, right? So at best, I'm gonna be able to support maybe 1 or 2 CTE programs. Whereas right now, my kids that go to Virgin's can access 24 CTE programs.
And then who's the agency that nobody trusts? Who's that?
Agency of Education.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if you followed the whole hiring of the secretary and the legislature not confirming her and then the governor confirming her anyway, and it was a whole political thing.
Seems to be a lot of that here in Vermont.
Yeah.
Nicole, I just want to say, unbelievably impressive. It's mind-blowing how incredible these programs are and what they're doing for our students in Vermont. And I just want to commend you with all of the challenges that you have, budget, political, otherwise. That is a mind-blowing presentation. We should be shouting this from the rooftops in Addison County and beyond. And thank you for all you're doing. We just can't lose sight of the impact we're having on our youth, or our high school kids today when they're struggling in so many other ways. And we see that when they all come to Middlebury, like there's just a lot of pressure, and I could go on and on about the state of higher ed right now, but this is a pathway that is fantastic for so many of our students, and I think the message of you don't always have to go to college to have a successful career is a really good one. And the fact that you have all of these students who are engaged and happy and learning and taking regular courses, but also, the skills that they're learning, I can't believe you have that many programs. It's unbelievable. Really impressive. We should be shouting this from the rooftops, what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, completely echo that. And then also, I already sent you an email, so we need to talk more, but do you guys market like a lot of the tuition reimbursement programs around here from employers?
Yes, and there's also, I don't know if you know about VSAC, but very rarely does an adult education student pay any out-of-pocket money coming here, unless they're taking a class for fun, which is a different thing, like wood turning or something. But for example, most of our medical people, somebody's paying for that. Either Porter's paying for it, or VSAC is paying for it, or a grant is paying for it, because they're career changers generally, and there's money out there. Yeah.
Well, so I'm also thinking about the kids coming out. You said only 50% go to like 4-year university or something like that.
Right.
But like one of those high school kids could come here for any job, and we pay for their school for whatever they wanted to go do, basically. And and they just go on with their career.
Yes, and that's what that is a big piece of what the education that we do with our students in their technical programs, right? That's why our partners are so important, because your story is similar to other, partners that we have. If the student will take a job with them, in many cases, that partner will employ the student and then continue to train them and even send them to college if the student's willing to stay. It's pretty powerful, and it's very different than sort of the experience lots of us had when we were getting out of high school, which is good luck. Right.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think if you have an opportunity to see what the Career Center is doing and get in the building, it's really impressive. I've been really impressed with the Advanced Manufacturing and Engineering program. It's completely turned around in the past 2.5, 3 years. And I mean, we have co-op students that are business and they're great. So highly support it. Any other discussion about this? All right.
Excellent.
Thank you, Nicole. The next order of business is the executive session. Did you have anything else?
Nope.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss membership, sponsorship, and other business. Is there a motion?
I'll move.
Second? Any second? All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll go into executive session. Can we turn off the recording?